Now that you know about XML,
This video is brought to you by Pies Academy.
it's time to look at another way the server can communicate with your application, and that's through JSON, JavaScript Object Notation. Now, you heard the word JavaScript in there, and that's because JSON is a JavaScript object, which means it's easy to parse simply by using JavaScript itself. This is what JSON looks like, and of course it looks confusing, but if you look carefully at this JSON, which by the way is from Flickr, the photo site, you can see that it's broken up into key value pairs. There's the link, and here is the value of the link. Media, M, and then it has this particular URL here. We have the date taken. We have the description, which includes in here, in all this HTML, the image and source. So we actually can just grab the description out of this JSON feed, and we should be able to display the photos. So let's try it. I've already given us a head start. I've set up our window onload function and put the URL in here. We've instantiated our XML HTTP request object so we can communicate with the server. We've opened our connection, and our onReadyStateChange callback function is called processImageInfo. We then call the send command to start the communication. When we have communication back from the server, if our ready state is 4 and the status is 200, we're going to go ahead and get the JSON. So we get the JSON that's sent back from the server by getting the XML HTTP response text property. We put that in a variable called the JSON, and right now I'm logging that to the console. And now here's kind of a confusing line of code. Starting with the inside out, the JSON that comes back from this particular server actually has an extra parenthesis at the beginning and at the end, which is crazy, I know, but we've got to remove that so the JSON can be parsed. So here, we took the JSON that came back from the actual Flickr API, and we're slicing from character number 1, it's 0 index, so that's the second character, all the way to the second to last character, which cuts off both of those parentheses. We're taking that result string, and we're running json.parse, which is parsing this into a JSON object, and then we're logging out that JSON object. So let me show you what exactly that means here in the browser. Let's go ahead and open our developer tools. Okay, good. So if you look in the bottom here, so first off is the string with the JSON in it that was returned. Notice the parentheses here because we haven't cut them off yet. And here's all our key value pairs with the links, the titles, etc. Now at the bottom, our second console log, right here on line 24, that's after we've parsed it and it becomes an object. So we've output this JSON twice. But the second time, look what we've done. We've actually created here our object that we can parse in the browser. So we can go through and we can get that description tag and output that so we can actually see the photos. All right, so now we know what our JSON looks like. So let's go ahead and let's console log the JSON.length here so we can see the length of the JSON. And I'm going to go ahead and comment out the output of that giant string. Let's refresh. And we're getting undefined. And that's because we haven't actually gone into the JSON to get out the actual items. So let's take a look here. Let's do this one more time. So there's our JSON. And at the top level, we've got title, link, description, modified, and generator. And then we've got items. So we've got to go into this items element, which has all of the items in there, all our individual photos. So if I change this to json.items.length, comment that out again, let's see what happens now. 20, which is good because 20 photos were returned. So that means we can loop through this and get out all the information that we want. Let's go ahead and display the JSON one more time so we have it for reference. And there we go. So we're going to get the description out of each of these photos. So we're going to loop through JSON.items. So let's change this like this. So now we have JSON.items in a variable called items. We're going to loop through items. Like this. And let's just make sure we're doing this right. Console log items sub I. So the first time through would be item 0, then 1, then 2, dot description. And that is, you have to match the capitalization here, so just making sure that is not capitalized. All right, so now with this change, we should be looping through everything. Let's see how it looks. So we have our initial log of all of the JSON, and then here are all the items. They're in p tags, and you can see we've got the photos in there. We can go ahead and take this out. We don't need that anymore. So now instead of logging them out, let's go ahead and use our result div. So document, get element by ID, result, inner HTML, plus equals, and now we're going to get items I dot description. We actually don't need this console log either. So let's go ahead and try it, see if it works, and if it does, then we can go through the code and see how it works. And a lot of people covered with mud on a beach, but looks like we're getting the last photos that came from Flickr with the tag soccer. Okay, not sure why the marching band is tagged as soccer, but these are the photos tagged as soccer. All right, so this worked just fine. So let's take a look at one more time what we did here. So we got the actual naked JSON back, just a JSON file that it's presented as an entire string, and don't forget to have that extra parenthesis at the beginning and the end. So this JSON has the HTML that displays each photo. We log that out, and then we slice off the leading and trailing parenthesis. We parse the JSON so it becomes an object that the browser can understand. We then get all of the items. Each photo is called an item in the JSON. And then we simply add the HTML from the JSON to our result div. So if we were to actually take a look at our code, or I shouldn't say our code, but our code as it's stored in the browser, here we go, that's what I was looking for. If we were to look in the result div, there are all of the Flickr photos that we got from the HTML inside of the JSON from the Flickr API. That's a mouthful. All right, so now you understand how we can use JSON and how easy it is to parse when we are communicating with a web service.